seeing that. So this is the kind of the top level file. It's almost like your desktop within Cortex. Um, so these are existing trees of files, and this is all it is wiki based. And Josh, you can jump in on any of the architecture here. But maybe we should start with just starting a new tree, because this is where the NFT that you own with the Cortex domain will come into play, and maybe we can touch on that a little bit. Does that sound right, Josh?
Yeah, and one thing I want to point out on that screen and through this process is the way these clusters work, or they're kind of the root entry point to a group of notes. It's based on, as you see there, a key and a channel, and those will come from the NFTs in Butterfly once that feature is kind of fully complete. So in that previous page, it was kind of, boring and plain, where it just had a little title. But that will look more like, those will be NFT type cards where you can see your full thing. So it will integrate a lot more, and you can kind of think of those as your Butterfly NFTs and domains. But so you can tie directly to a key. Go ahead, sorry.
And so for now, this will just generate a random key and a random channel, but maybe you can talk a little bit about the keys and the channels.
So what you're entering here is it's an entry point, basically. So it's like the root of a tree of notes or a notebook. And the key controls the ownership at that root level, and all the other keys underneath are generated from those two things. When you randomly generated one there, that was a private key, which makes all these writable. But you could also put a public key in there, which would make all of them read only. And it's based on the same math, basic math as the BIP32 or HD wallets, where it creates a tree structure out of those public key, private key pairs.
But in a real sense, then, when we create these notes and these structures and give them names, they're kind of synonymous with the keys themselves, because that's how the keys are derived.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different than a lot of other projects that you'd see maybe pointers between NFTs and files and things like that.
Yeah, they're at the kind of lower level. They're all of these notes. Every note has a key and a channel, and they're all addressed by that. So that's the unique identifier for it and how it can be looked up. So it's you can kind of think of it, and it ties in with IPFS, which does the content addressable linking. So if the content changes, then the address changes, and the address always points to the same content. This uses key and channel as those unique identifiers, which allows that content to be changed. So then it can work in conjunction with something like IPFS to have a way to identify specific data that can change and who owns it.
And have versioning and the kind of common things and ways that we're used to working with data and files already. So I'll go in here to a note that I've already established, but you can see that it's marked down, so maybe similar to something like Notable or just some other kind of writer-oriented markdown apps that are out there. The kind of thing to notice here is that this home area is really the start of this tree. And when you create a new link, say, I created one here. This is not actually today. What's happening today? It's because it's a link I made a couple months ago. But if I go to what's happening today, it takes me to that note in that tree. that's been established by the name that I gave it and the link that I created to it that goes underneath this file structure. And so maybe you talk a little bit about the wiki aspects of this and some of the design choices there, Josh.
Yeah, so there's several note systems that have similar concepts of like wikis, where you don't need to go through a process of creating a file specifically. You link to it, and then you follow that link, and if it doesn't exist, it makes a new note. The exact format we use for the links might be refined a little bit in the future, but the general idea is there's two kind of ways to link to different notes in some of the formats you're using there. You can basically either do it from the current note that you're on, and so do a path from that one, or if you're several notes deep, you might do it on from the root. So
yeah, there's one that just is from. So this one here is from the current note, and this one here is.
I think we
actually they're both from the current note.
But
anyway,
yeah. So
we're at the top level, so they kind of look the same.
Yeah, so since you're already at the top level, there's no reason to link to something else. But that format also can include either that kind of lower level key and channel, so you can link across outside of this cluster if you want. And yeah, I don't remember.
I'm just going to put in the link. So our but there's a version of our website already that is
the butterfly
hosted in this decentralized architecture. And so we'll be using these links to connect with the current web, or the legacy web. So if you go to HTTP, and this isn't going to work because this is for me because I'm just in this area, but if you go to HTTP : type, you go to this link. I can probably even do that in another browser, but you'll see this in the distributed environment. And maybe you could talk a little bit, Josh, about what people are actually seeing when they go to this link.
Yeah, so that one, the bfly.link is a gateway. From the legacy DNS system. So we have bfly.link running, and it takes the crtx.app domain, which is a butterfly domain, and it pulls the site that's hosted on IPFS up and stores that there without needing to put any extension in your browser or install anything extra. And as we build things out for Cortex, there will be gateways specifically for Cortex as well. So it won't have to do something as long as that either.
So if this is my NFT someday, so say this is, and it won't be, but say it's leo.cortex. Within the Cortex application, I'll just be known as like @Leo. To the web, to the distributed butterfly web, this page will be known as leo.cortex. And to the broader web, it'll be leo.cortex.link.
Yeah.
And this then makes it really easy to publish. So we don't have it here now, but eventually this will just be we'll have a publish or a commit. It's very much like GitLike features where you'll actually be committing and signing the things that you publish. And so eventually there will be a commit and a publish button that if this is a public note, meaning that it's on a public channel, it'll be posted to these areas. these pages. And so, yeah, it's back to your initial question, Sergio. Let's talk a little bit about the public and private linking, or the links. So this then does become, because this is a public key, as we see back when we created the note, this is a public key, and you could actually send tokens or assets to the key behind this. Maybe talk a little bit about that, Josh.
Basically, what you just said. So where there's integration,
how will that be resolved, though? I guess maybe is what people might wonder.
Yeah. So it there's a couple ways. When it's published, we can have links on the sites as they're published that include the address of that specific note. So every single note has its own public key or key pair, so public-private key. So, and it uses the standard encryption that Bitcoin and Ethereum and Doge and everything else use. So that same address can be used on all those different systems. They're the same key pair. You can generate different addresses for the different coins, but that could be linked on the page when you go to it in the browser. You can see it. The other ways we have integrations. Some of the way it's integrated, I don't want to talk about yet. So some surprise features. But
yeah, probably giving away too much already.
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much, but we will have some ways to integrate with wallets and things also. So go to leo.crtx, something in different wallets, and send tokens and things between.
So the thing that people always ask about this, so I think hopefully people can start to see that each of these is addressed. It can hold different things, way down to, even a low level. Like if I go to this link, what's happening today? This is another key. So the keys now don't live in just, a big bucket in your wallet. In a lot of ways, they become part of a structure that I think, we don't even know what the consequences of that, but we do know that it's going to make current assets a lot easier to manage, I think, and easier to use on an ongoing basis, especially when we go to mobile. But people always ask, so because the space, you can put assets here, how can we kind of build an environment around these assets, and what will they look like? Like maybe in VR, but even simply within Cortex here today.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the initial focus is on building a simple app that seems deceptively simple, right? So we want to make something that's an easy to use note-taking app from the beginning, and then the crypto pieces can add all sorts of different dimensions to it, but we don't want those to necessarily be the focus from the beginning, right? So longer term, we definitely will have do some cool things where a note can hold different NFTs. So if they're art-based NFTs, you can create kind of maybe even a tour gallery where you have different kind of rooms as your different notes that kind of connect together, and you go through and you can see in VR, like you said, the different notes or different NFT pictures hanging on the wall, along with descriptions and stuff that you've added, why that NFT is important to you in your note. There's all sorts of really cool things that can be enabled by the technology. And the approach overall, though, is to make it so initially that even though the technology lets us do all those cool things, initially it kind of fades away, right? So
right.
we're going to be using NFTs in that cluster area and for creating all those links. But just like you don't want to look at an IP address when you're in your browser, even though you can link to different notes across clusters and everything using the keys and the channels, we're simplifying that down to using Butterfly to have a simple name that creates that link, and do that with every aspect. So it's simple and seamless, and then we can start to leverage the cool power of crypto and the decentralized web.
One thing,
more and more.
One thing many people might be wondering, because at first, also when I was learning about Cortex and everything, I didn't know what you meant with keys. So if you want to explain to everyone what that means.
Yeah. So, if you're not coming from crypto, it can be very confusing. So there's crypto and like cryptocurrencies and a lot of the decentralized systems are all based on public key, private key pairs. So just like the name suggests, the private key you keep private, and you can use it to sign messages. And the public key is when you share with other people. And in cryptocurrencies, they can use that to send tokens to you, and only people with a private key can spend or send those to other people once it's received. In the notes in Cortex, that acts as kind of a read-only or a read-write permission. So if you have the private keys, then you're able to create the notes and write to that cluster. And if you have the public key, you're only able to read those. And then we have some additional permissions that you can set on the notes that allow you to encrypt them different ways. So there's additional levels of security besides just the read and write.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about kind of the next layer of this, which will be more the community features and the collaboration features that is kind of after version 1, but that are pretty well architected at this point. But we really see this as more of a kind of the best of both worlds, and bringing public and private together and being able to collaborate in public and private spaces in new ways. I don't know if you want to talk about a little bit about the public-private aspects of the links, or what we're calling the we could call them key links, but we're calling them blockchain links because they are links between keys. So this is from this top level key to a key further down the key tree, or the address tree, if you want to think about it that way. Maybe talk a little bit about the public-private aspects, which I know you're excited about, Josh.
Yeah, so some of it's based on the root. You can have a private cluster for your private notes, and that's part of where the channel piece comes in. So when you generated it, it was a random 32 byte hash, and 32 byte hash can be derived from a lot of different ways, right? You just generated a random one when you created your new cluster, which makes it private just from the fact alone that in order to find those notes, someone would have to have that channel as well as the public key. So it's a combination of those two that makes it so that even if it was out there, it can't be found. And then the encryption, you can choose to encrypt those based on that channel as well as the key, which prevents people who don't know the channel from reading it, right? So if you have a private note, the private channel is like a super secret password. And then some of the public ones, which you link to by your butterfly name, the channel is actually uses the same hashing algorithm that is used in ENS and other things. The name hashing, it's called, so it's derived from the domain name itself. which is why that cluster can be linked to a butterfly NFT directly. So it has the channel is derived from that that domain, and then the owner is how you get that public key. So a single
Right.
NFT has all the information you need for to access a cluster. Yeah. There's also some other cool ways to generate those channels. So you can have use what we previously called HD entanglement with some of the U-base aspects, which allow two people to use some standard. If you're no crypto at all, it would be it's called a Diffie-Hellman thing to generate a shared secret. But you use those to take basically two people, and they can create a shared secret without sending any information between each other besides the public keys, and kind of create a space for their shared notes between the two of them, which has some really cool things that you can do with it.
And then another part of this is, if once you create one of these links to an outside person, a note becomes then sort of a comment on whatever they've created. And there will be cool ways to filter then the kinds of comments that you want to see based on the addresses that or the owners that so it kind of becomes, if you look at one of the bigger problems, I think, in social media today, is it's still really hard to filter what you see and what you don't see, and while still remaining open and controlled at a more granular layer. So I think I'm really excited about that, because it just makes your social experience open to everybody, but what you see is really filterable by you, the person who really owns your whole social environment now.
Yeah, and on that topic, we specifically call that part of the link, like the day and all that. That's referred to in everything as the topic. So it's not just a path or something like that. And the reason is that, like you said, anybody else can make a new note on that same topic. So there might be an official one, like a leo.crtx, and you have a topic talking about what you think tokens you think are gems, and so you have a .gems note. So that link is a combination of your key and that topic, and I would be able to write my comments on there too. So it would, by combining my key with that same topic, you could see what I'm looking at, and if you combine it with that same channel, then you're only changing the key. You're saying who's talking on that domain, who owns it, so who's saying the official word and who's saying other things around it, if that makes sense. So I can comment on it, and you could also go to my channel to see officially what I'm saying on the topic. And by doing that, you can have a kind of network of trust too. So you can add people who are people you trust, and maybe you trust people that they trust. And so when you're looking at any note or any topic, or you're writing about something new, say I just start a new one, and I do /gems, and then I see that I trust Sergio, and I trust Leo, and I see what you've written on those topics. So any topic I create, I can see automatically from my network who else has written about similar things and what they say about it. And I can comment on theirs. I can create my own note, and then they can also comment on mine. So it really is about, especially on the public side. So there are the two sides where you keep your private notes, but on the public side, you can kind of put your knowledge out there and see what other people that you trust are saying about things, and kind of get the knowledge of the group.
Yeah, and I think we haven't even gotten into a lot of the other community features that we're going to have, but I think by this time people get the hopefully understand that this really goes really deep in terms of the architecture for creating a whole public-private space. So while it's a note-taking app and a publishing app for a decentralized space, that just opens up a lot of doors for the kinds of things that people are going to be able to do and the ways that they're going to be able to collaborate in the very near future. If you have any questions, Sergio, but I think...
the thing with that was like quite impressive to me is that all of this was achieved avoiding transactions. Like, it's very curious how something that has crypto built in its core has achieved to avoid these transactions. Like, for example, if on Butterfly, even if you want to upload something to a domain, you have to pay an IPFS transaction. If you want to upload the IPFS to a domain, you have to pay an Ethereum transaction, and all those type of things. To me, it was really impressive how that was achieved. And I also wanted to ask you guys, how will the publishing feature work? Are you going to dedicate a special UI for it, like a type of marketplace for all these things that will be published? What's your idea?
So you will be able to publish with the first version of this just to your domain. So here I could publish this page, or if I could actually created a gems page underneath here, there will be a publish button that just says publish, and it will actually publish to that domain and that link that'll be accessible. And that'll be IPFS on the back end as a default, but eventually, and that's a decentralized file store, but we will be adding other places that you can store. Like right now, this is stored locally, and we'll have local options, and eventually I'm sure AWS options and other kinds of options as they become available.
Yeah, that's what that whole right area of that toolbar on the top is for. That's why it's blank right now. So, and talking about the fees, there are going to be some, because there are some places you have to interact with the chains. So, on like you said, on Butterfly, creating a domain, registering a domain, all that does take some fees because you're interacting with the blockchain. But we do keep it minimal on Cortex. So it's going to, first of all, we're going to be doing a lot of that on Polygon, which has much lower fees. And then when you actually are publishing the notes, it's based around the signing of the information in the notes at those different keys, and these commits that can be shared in any number of different ways. As long as you get the different commits that someone's made, no matter what order you get them, or if you only have partial information, it's an eventual consistency model. So, there will be some options to publish on chain, where you can batch a whole bunch up into a single transaction, a whole bunch of commits from a bunch of different people, and then so you're paying one transaction fee on a very inexpensive network, or it could even be if things went sideways and the only way to communicate was like or transfer things was directly, or you want something very very secure, like the two-person kind of entanglement approach. We could send those different commits back and forth to each other directly, even over different channels. So it doesn't really matter what channel you exchange the commits at. whenever you get them, you can basically rearrange them and get the same information. Yeah, that was maybe too deep into it, I guess, but
no, that was
cool. I think it's neat too. I like
neat,
how we accomplished it.
Yeah, Cortex goes deep.